Angry Gorilla refused to let anyone near him, then Staff checked his hands and saw this. At this point, they were accustomed to Bobo's behavior, so when he began acting strangely, they felt they needed to look into it further. All of them needed to see what he was holding, but none dared to approach too closely. They were all shocked when they eventually realized what it was. This was not typical behavior for apes. A gorilla that weighs more than 300 pounds should be fairly powerful. However, Bobo had a tender side that he would display to both the keepers and the other gorillas. But since Bobo had already ascended to the position of alpha, no one would be able to depose him without a battle. However, when Bobo began behaving strangely for an alpha male, his caregivers became concerned. What did he have on? The sanctuary, which has over 300 apes and monkeys seeking refuge within its cages, was supported by the non-profit Ape Action Africa. Since Elissa had reared Bobo and was familiar with him, she knew she would need to keep an eye on him while he was acting off and make sure no other primates were in risk. Bobo used to confidently stroll around the enclosure before his behavior changed. But more recently, whenever the sanctuary's gates closed, he had begun to hide among the tall grass. Elissa kept a close eye on him as she began to understand that Bobo wasn't really hiding in the grass but rather was concealing something from the other people. So Elissa watched Bobo carefully as he began to misbehave and tried to hide something from them. At this point, everyone on staff was worried. Elissa went to investigate it after waiting for Bobo to leave the grassy area he had started frequenting. She exhaled with relief after discovering nothing. Later on, she would learn that Bobo had actually kept the item close to him rather than hidden it. When Elissa tried to approach Bobo, he was quick to put distance between them despite the fact that he was often quite sociable with the sanctuary personnel. He was worrying over something in his hands, and soon she was able to get close enough to view it. The furry little animal getting poked and prodded by Bobo seemed perfectly content resting in the giant gorilla's paw. This struck Staff as odd, considering a rodent would be more likely to scurry away. Perhaps it's injured, she thought. Using a pair of binoculars, Elissa could quickly tell it wasn't a rodent at all. The tiny creature was actually a primate too. The sanctuary took care of so many apes that you would think it might be expected that they lose track of one or two. But not at Mefao, which took great pride in the individual care they gave each and every animal. The primate they were studying was a galago. Staff concluded that the creature had found its way into Bobo's enclosure from the forest surrounding the sanctuary. The galago, also known as a bush baby due to the crying sound they make, wasn't usually the kind of primate they took care of at Mefao. The bush baby showed no fear of Bobo, moving around his body and spending time hopping around in an open grassy area before choosing to return to Bobo, said Elissa. We have never witnessed a wild primate interacting with a rescued one, said Elissa. But the unique positioning of Mefao's enclosures by the forest made for a once-in-a-lifetime encounter between a tiny wildling and a giant friendly gorilla, which soon became a huge attraction for the other apes. It didn't take long before the other apes in the group realized what Bobo had become so preoccupied with. And a few of the more curious ones moved in for a closer look. Understanding what the tiny guest needed, Bobo offered the galago the chance to return to his natural habitat, lifting him up to the tree branch overhanging the enclosure. Elissa was thrilled that they'd managed to capture the experience on camera and that all was well with the apes. The video quickly went viral, garnering more than 2,000 comments and over 1.7 million views. People from all over the world and from all walks of life were touched by the heartwarming interaction between Bobo and his tiny friend.